Well, Colonel Eran Lerman joins me from Jerusalem, a former military intelligence officer for the Israel Defense Forces. He was the Deputy National Security Advisor until 2009. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. When we see these images of loss of life on both sides, what is initially your own personal human reaction to that?
Well, it is a tragedy brought about by the policy of a terrorist organization holding the people of Gaza in their grip since they took over in 2007, and holding the people living in the areas immediately adjacent to the Gaza Strip, again, hostage to their political interest in dominating the Palestinian politics. And further afield, they've now extended their campaign to Jerusalem, firing at Jerusalem, firing at other Israeli population centers. So Israel needs to at least reduce their capacity to do so and reduce their will to do so. And the measures that are being taken are taken very carefully, but there's no way to avoid a loss of life when the situation is that Hamas is perpetrating two war crimes simultaneously, firing at civilians, hiding behind civilians.
But Israel is also obviously responsible for its own actions. Is there any level of loss of life, in your view, that is too much?
Well, clearly Israel is doing its best to avoid loss of life among the uninvolved, but it is not entirely possible when Hamas military infrastructure is deeply invested inside densely populated areas. This is, by the way, in itself a crime under the Statute of Rome. What is our policy is quite clearly to do whatever can be done to avoid this.
But what is the specific end point in that case? Is there a very specific end point to this, a time limit on Israel's military action in your view?
Well, I think the IDF wants to come to the point in which the capacity to fire at our citizens, to murder our children in their beds, is so significantly reduced, and the will to do so is so significantly reduced, that we may have some peace and quiet on this troubled front.
But only surely for only surely
no willingness to go in, but we would go in if we have no choice.
And how likely is that in your view?
Not very likely. I believe that we are going to achieve a reasonable degree of persuasion on the other side. Perhaps the signs are already coming out. They have asked for Egyptian mediation. There may come a point in the next few days when this could become possible. But let me say one thing. I think Hamas is paying us a compliment. They know that we would not retaliate in indiscriminatory fashion. They are firing at us in indiscriminatory fashion. They know that we would not do to their cities what Bomber Harris did to German cities in retaliation for the Blitz, because life has moved on and Israel operates by our own moral standards and according to the laws of war.
And yet we're seeing children being killed. So when you talk of moral standards, people, will question what moral standards are you operating by. We know that the US is sending its envoy to try to broker some sort of peace. Even if you manage to contain Palestinian violent action, it's only going to be temporary without a proper political solution, isn't it?
Well, the Hamas concept of a proper political solution is the elimination of the State of Israel. That is their stated position. This is, by the way, why this organization is considered a terrorist organization by each and every member of the European Union, as well as other countries. So we're not going to negotiate about our right to exist. And so a proper political solution with Hamas is well nigh impossible.
Is Israel being caught out here by the fact that Hamas is able to rearm? It's firing, numerous rockets simultaneously. Are you confident that the Iron Dome is sufficient protection?
Well, it does. Well, it's not total protection. It provides about a 90 to 95% success rate. Hamas has fired something like 3,000 rockets. A good number of them, by the way, fell within Gaza, and many of the civilian casualties within Gaza are from short Hamas rockets. But in this entire campaign, there have been 10 dead in Israel. If this is what they think will break our spirit, they are very wrong. The government of Israel is actually acting with restraint as compared to the sentiments of many Israelis who would be willing to endure this for as long as it's necessary.
Even if there is violence within Israel now between the communities, which is not something that we've seen really in recent times.
Well, it is quite troubling that radical elements, and young hotheads among some Arab communities, not all, have been seized by this Islamist incitement that Hamas and others are encouraging. It is a challenge. It's a major challenge. We would need to work carefully with others within the Arab community and with our law enforcement agencies to bring to heel also the Israeli Jewish vigilantes who have reacted violently, and also to blame for what's happening.
Colonel, I'm sorry to cut in. We're absolutely out of time on this. But Colonel Eran Lerman, thank you very much indeed for your time.
You're welcome.